Okay, hello and welcome everyone. Welcome to JFD Traders Tea Time with me, Darius and Anucauskas. Today is the 16th of October 2019, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday's afternoon session where we're going to have a quick look at the markets, a few of the charts, the usual stuff. But before we do that, as always, let's quickly have a read through our risk disclaimer. So, the content we produce does not constitute investment advice or investment recommendation, should not be considered as such, and does not in any way constitute an invitation to acquire any financial instrument or product. As always, a few seconds for you to read the rest and we can continue. Okay, also, just before we jump into the charts, quick mentioning of our JFD YouTube channel here, to which you can always subscribe to in order not to miss any of our upcoming videos, and of course our JFD Bank website, and specifically our JFD Research tab here. If you can click on that one, and it will take you to our research page, which we update on a daily basis, and I believe you can find a lot of useful stuff here, guys, for yourself. So feel free to visit us here on jfdbank.com and click on the research tab, and it will take you to our page. Okay, so the first chart I wanted to touch on here, and that's the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So looking at this picture here and how it ended up yesterday, we've managed to close in the positive territory. This is what I was talking about, we've managed to break this downside resistance line taken from the high of around the 12th of September, and yep, it remained above it, but still it wasn't able to close above this key area of resistance near the 27,050 territory. So basically, looking at the cash index right now, we can see that the price has slid a little bit and it's currently balancing around its psychological 27,000 mark. So again, that's on one hand, that's a good sign because we're still above the downside resistance line. On the other hand, you can see that the index is struggling to push above this 27,050 territory. So we'll keep an eye on it today again. If we get another push above it, then, well, this could be quite interesting for the buyers, as this could open the path towards the 27,307 territory, approximately around there, and that's marked near the high of the 12th of September. Slightly above it, only about 100, roughly around 100 points higher, we do have the Dow's all-time high. So basically, we're not far from all-time high, and in a way, if we get a nice push towards that area, it would be quite interesting to see if the index could form a new all-time high, maybe at least this year. It would be quite interesting, like I said, to see. But for now, the way you should be looking at this one is keep an eye on this 27,050 territory. If we get a push above it, then yes, that's wonderful. Even especially, it would be even more wonderful if we get a daily close above this level. Then yep, it increases the chances for a further move higher. But if it starts sliding and slides below this downside resistance line, well, we'll be very careful here. This little neutral territory, will be a bit of a neutral one for us. There we go. I managed to build the sentence. Basically, because in order for us to get excited about the downside, we will start looking at lower levels. If we see a drop below these three of our EMAs, the 21, the 50, and the 100 EMA, and a drop below the 26,600 zone, that could, in a way, kind of raise a bit more selling interest here. But of course, just for that extra confirmation, in addition to that, we would like to see a drop below the 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart, and then yep, we will aim for lower levels. So we'll start considering the downside if we see a drop below the 26,600 zone. So keep your eyes on that one. But of course, until it's kind of trading above this downside line, we will remain somewhat positive. But for that extra confirmation, I'll repeat myself, we need to see a nice good push above the 27,050 territory. Jumping into another instrument, I haven't looked at this one for quite a while, and that's Ripple. So Ripple, last time I've touched on this one, you can see that we were still hanging around here below this downside resistance line, and let me show you where that's coming from. And that's coming from the high of the 22nd of June this year. So and at the same time, we're balancing above this short-term upside support line taken from the low of the 24th of September. So what I was saying that we at the time when I was looking at this one last time, the previous in my one of my previous videos, we were declining here a little bit. But what I was saying that in a way, if this area holds, if this upside line continues to hold, or in other words, the crypto continues to trade above this upside line, then there is a more possibility for this one to drift higher. But also what I was saying that to keep an eye on this barrier right here near the 0.287273 zone. We had a nice pop above it. It traveled higher. It tested the psychological 0.30 zone, and let me just quickly mark that on our chart, from which it retraced back down, and you can see it's currently drifting lower. Now, probably what we'll do here is we will adjust our levels slightly. Now, of course, we will keep an eye on this 0.2873 area, but this level right here becomes an interesting one, an important one for us right now. The psychological 0.30 level will be interesting to see if we actually manage to get to that area again. For now, you can see that it's still kind of trading above this upside line, but it's getting closer to it. So in a way, that we can reuse this arrow here, and we could kind of consider the same scenario. If this upside line holds, we could see another round of buying, and for those who are more on the cautious side, you could just in a way wait for a clear push above this 0.30 level, and only then target the further upside. Then we could aim for the 0.3083, or even this little high here that we saw on the 18th of September, and that's around the 0.3273 zone. So, but again, for now, it's drifting a little bit lower. For now, we're considering this as a temporary correction. If this upside line holds, we could see a nice rebound and a push back to the upside. But if this line starts breaking, then, well, I mean, this is where it could become a little bit more interesting for the sellers, as this could in a way send the crypto lower. But for us to get comfortable with slightly lower areas, we'll probably wait for a drop below here, below this little area near the 0.2654. This way, the price would also be below its 200 EMA on the 4-hour chart, and we could then target much lower areas like the 0.2425 or even below that. But again, like I said, for now, it's still more on the positive side, even though it's retracing, because we are going to consider this as a temporary correction as long as it remains trading above this short-term upside support line. So keep your eyes on this one. EURNOK. Now, if you probably don't trade this one very often, it's probably worthwhile to have a look at this, because this is exploding heavily to the upside today. So a nice move higher here. You can see explosion, and after it kind of broke above this key area of resistance near the 10.0860, you can see how well this traveled higher, and this has gained a lot. And basically, for now, it seems that there's no stopping for this one. Don't get me wrong, at some point this will have to reverse. The only question here is, when will that happen? So for now, we need that confirmation, or should I say reversal signal first, before we could, let's say, try to maybe consider maybe a small correction where we could maybe take advantage of that. But again, for now, it seems that there's no stopping on this one. Let's jump into a daily chart on this one very quickly, just to have a look where this could be going to, because for now you can see that even if a daily chart is not even enough here. So even if I'll jump into a monthly chart, this is looking a little bit much better. So as you can see, this is where the pair is currently set at. So it's currently near the highest point of December of 2008, guys. So this is where the pair is right now. So that high is around the 10.1775 level. So we haven't been at these levels since 2008. And remember what happened in the end of 2008. Well, we had a nice slide here, economical downturn. So basically, I'm not leaning towards the same idea here, guys, but you know, for now, we'll keep an eye on some of these levels here, guys. So, like I said, keep your eyes on this 10.1775 because that's quite interesting. And today the pair was close from reaching that level, but kind of really failed to do so. Again, we still have a week to go here, and in a way, there could be still a chance for this one to touch and test this 10.1775 zone. We'll keep an eye on this one. If, let's say, it decides not to travel all the way here, decides to reverse earlier, and like I said, that's the kind of confirmation signal that we're waiting for. It is quite overbought even on the daily chart, so that's why, guys, for now, keep your eyes on this one. It's quite an interesting one. We could in a way try to capture something here on a small correction to the downside, because still it's really difficult to talk about the downside because we are still kind of moving higher and we're trading above this kind of a bit of a tentative one, this upside support line taken from the low of the 19th of September. So in a way, if we do see that correction, if we do see that reversal signal, then we could consider maybe a possible move here all the way towards the 10.0860 level, or even this upside support line. So we'll keep an eye on it, and I really strongly recommend you to keep an eye on this one as well. Keep an eye on this 10.1775 zone. That's the highest point of December 2008. Yep, we are quite overbought on this one, so let's see if we can squeeze something out of it. Euro dollar. Now, euro dollar is it had an attempt today to move towards the 1.1063 territory, which is the highest point of last week, but kind of so far it's failing to get closer to it, or should I say, or stay closer to it. It got closer, but it's struggling to stay close to it. So in a way, this is the level still that we're keeping an eye on, because we need to see a break above it before we could, let's say, consider a possible move higher here. And our target still remains the same. I talked about this one in all of my previous videos where I was covering euro dollar. Our target still remains at 1.1110, but we will consider that only if we see a push above this 1.1063 zone. So let me just quickly highlight that for our future reference. So that's going to be the level that we're going to be keeping an eye on. In terms of the downside here, well, because it has shifted a little bit now to the right. So in order for us to consider the downside, we will start looking at lower levels if we see a drop below this this upside support line, the short-term upside support line. But in order to get a little bit more comfortable with the downside, a drop below the this medium-term downside resistance line could in a way do the trick for more sellers. And we could see this one sliding initially towards the 1.0940 territory, and then we'll take it from there, see what he wants to do, because if it gets broken, then this is opening the path towards much lower areas. And by much lower areas, I mean maybe the current lowest point of October. But for now, that's just an idea. For the downside, we need some confirmation breaks first, and the same story with the upside. We need some confirmation breaks first as well. So, but this is for us right now, from the very short-term perspective, it's the 1.1063. USDCAD. So we did get some data. We did get some Canadian data today. Let me just double check and confirm that. So we had nice, well, not very nice, but we had the headline, the Canadian headline CPI for the year-on-year coming out the same as the previous one, although the expectation was around the 2.1, so it was a bit of a disappointment, but still kind of okay-ish, I would say, comparing it to the previous one. So the core CPI came out, the core CPI year-on-year came out the same as 1.9 as expected. So in a way, not a lot of movement here on USD CAD. So for now, after kind of we saw this break here below the 1.3265, it drifted lower. It managed to reach the area. It dropped below the 1.32 zone, and it reached the area around the 1.3166, from which it rebounded and pushed back above this 1.32 zone. So it's currently balancing above it, but again, it's still struggling to move higher. So as you can see, still kind of in a way the same game plan for us here remains. The same game plan for the upside remains. We will consider slightly higher levels if we get a push above the 1.3265 zone. This way the rate would be above all of its EMAs, and we could consider a possible move back here towards the 1.3348, 49 zone. But only, like I said, only if we see a push above that one. In terms of the downside, again, because it's struggling to kind of push even above this little area right here. And let me just quickly put this one on the chart. Even it's struggling to push above the highs of last Friday. So there is a chance that we could see this one drifting back down. The only thing is that it's at this point it's a little bit risky. So in a way, what we could do here is just monitor some of the important support zones. So the first one being is probably we'll adjust the 1.32 level now towards this one. So if we see a drop below the low of yesterday, which is around the 1.3190 zone, then we will consider a possible move towards the 1.3166, which is the lowest point of last week. But if that fails to withhold, now this is where it could become a little bit more interesting, and we could initially target this low of the 10th of September, or in other words, the lowest point of September near the 1.3129 zone. So keep your eyes on that one. So basically in terms of the downside, this is the level that we're keeping a close eye on. Let me just quickly put this one up. Nope. Too much. So the 1.3190, that's when we will start considering lower areas, because we still would have to need to overcome this 1.3166 in order to kind of consider, in order to kind of aim for lower levels. But in terms of the upside, we'll wait for a push above the 1.3265, and then we'll aim for slightly higher levels here. GBPNZD. So of course, everything is around the pound lately, and especially this week. So we're seeing this nice explosion to the upside this morning as well, or should I say today as well. The negotiations continue. There are some positive remarks, there are some negative, but still the market for now sees everything more through the positive glasses. So you can see the strong move higher that we got here. We've managed to break this key area of resistance near the 2.047374 zone. Now I'll explain you what that level is in a minute. So but for now you can see that yes, it continues to move higher. It's just one-way traffic right now. But if I jump into a daily chart very quickly, you can see that this 2.047374 zone comes here from the highest point of October 2018. So we're basically breaking right now this highest point of October 2018. Of course, the big question here to where is this going to stay today? Because if we see a daily close above this, then well, it might continue drifting higher. You can see this is a daily chart, by the way, and you can see how steep this move higher is. So basically, whoever is trying to short it right now, unless you're scalping it, maybe, but again, you need to have a very tight stop loss in this one, because it's just one-way traffic, and currently it's to the upside. So for now, that's guys, be very careful, and still probably keep an eye on today's close, because it will be quite interesting to see where the daily candle is going to end. If it's going to end below this 2.0475 zone, 736, well, we can round it to 74. So if it stays below this, then there is a possibility that we could see maybe a correction back down. And in a way, of course, it could come in line with, let's say, if there are some bad news coming out tomorrow, or there's no agreement kind of reached in terms of the whole Brexit deal, which is currently well, getting agreed, of course. But if there's bad headlines coming out of that, if the DUP is not agreeing to anything there, then we could see the pound getting hit again. And to be honest, it could be a perfect fall here. Look at how steep this is, even on a daily chart. So in a way, guys, again, for now, this is just an idea. Of course, at some point this will have to correct, but given the current developments, it's a bit an extraordinary developments. So that's why we could see this one continuing accelerating to the upside. So in a way, even it could travel further north. So that's why, guys, be very careful with this one. Have a tight stop loss, and yep, like I said, keep your eyes today on this 2.0473 zone, 73, 70, 74. If we get a close below this, then there is a good chance we could see a bit of correction here to the downside. But again, like I said, for now, there are only positive developments coming out, positive headlines coming out. So this is why we are seeing this explosion here on GBP NZD. Well, similar stories happening with the GBPUSD as well, of course. In looking at this daily chart, and by the way, I'm going to keep this as a daily chart here. After we managed to break this downside resistance line taken from the high of 3rd of May, the pair traveled higher. It continues to push higher. Our target here is near the 1.2864. I talked about this one previously, so that's basically the low of the 25th of April. We will aim for this one initially, but slightly above that we do have another potential area of resistance at 1.2923. But to be honest, this is not as much as important as the 1.2864-65 zone. So in a way, if the pair gets stalled near this area here, near the 1.2864, we could maybe see a bit of a correction here back down here, maybe towards the 200-day EMA on this daily chart here. So and this would in a way come in line here with this territory near the 1.2650, because I spoke about this one this morning, saying that for us to consider lower areas, again, we would like to see a drop below the 1.2650, and then, yep, like I said, we will aim for slightly lower areas like the 1.25 zone, or even a little bit below that. But again, until then, for now, any kind of move lower could be seen as a temporary correction before another leg of buying, unless if the headlines remain positive as they are right now. If the headlines start coming out negative, then, well, yes, we could see a slide here, but from the technical perspective, we will get comfortable with lower areas if we see a drop below the 1.2650 zone. So keep your eyes on this one. It's quite interesting. Like I said, interesting moment right now. But again, all these interesting moments come with a lot of